If you've ever wondered why a cheese deliberately crawling with live maggots is a prized delicacy in one corner of Europe, or why a chocolate egg loved by children all over the world can get you fined at the American border, and many more secrets besides, stay with us. Fugu. The Japanese pufferfish is one of the most dangerous delicacies on Earth because its organs carry tetrodotoxin, a poison up to 1,000 times deadlier than cyanide with no known antidote. A single fish holds enough to kill dozens of people, and the toxin causes paralysis while the victim stays fully conscious. Preparing it is so risky that chefs in Japan must train for years and earn a special license before they are allowed to serve it. Even then, the liver, the most poisonous part, is banned from sale outright across Japan, a rule made absolute after a famous kabuki actor died eating fugu liver in 1975. Diners prize the faint tingle it leaves on the lips, a whisper of the poison that could kill them. It is a dish built entirely on trust in the person holding the knife. Casu marzu. On the island of Sardinia, there is a sheep's milk cheese made by letting live fly larvae eat their way through it. Cheesemakers leave a wheel of pecorino outdoors, so cheese flies lay their eggs inside, and the hatching maggots digest the fats, turning the cheese into a soft, weeping, pungent paste. It is eaten with the maggots still alive and wriggling, and the larvae can flick themselves several inches into the air, so some diners shield their eyes as they eat. The European Union classes it as unfit for sale, making commercial trade illegal, yet it survives on the island as a prized traditional food passed hand to hand. Fans insist the intense peppery burn is worth the risk, though the danger of swallowing live larvae is exactly why European hygiene rules keep it off the legal market. It may be the most infamous cheese in the world. Foie gras. This luxury of French cuisine is the enlarged liver of a duck or goose, produced by force-feeding the bird a rich grain mash through a tube in a process called gavage. The result is a liver up to 10 times its normal size, prized for a buttery, melting texture that has been a delicacy since ancient Egypt. It is also one of the most divided foods on Earth. Animal welfare groups condemn the force-feeding as cruelty, and production or sale has been banned or restricted in California and more than a dozen countries. Producers argue that ducks and geese naturally gorge before migration, and that the birds feel little distress. The fight has run through courts and legislatures for years, with bans passed, overturned, and passed again. Few foods sit so squarely on the line between fine dining and ethics. Kinder Surprise. A hollow chocolate egg with a small toy hidden inside. This treat is a staple of childhood across Europe and much of the world, selling in the billions. In the United States, it is illegal. A federal law dating to 1938 bans any candy with a non-edible object embedded inside it, judged a choking hazard, and the Kinder Surprise falls squarely under it. For years, travelers who tried to carry them across the border had them confiscated, with the government warning of fines that could in theory reach thousands of dollars per egg. The maker eventually created a separate American version, the Kinder Joy, which keeps the toy and the chocolate in two sealed halves to stay legal. It remains one of the strangest bans in food history, a beloved children's sweet treated as contraband. Shark fin. Shark fin soup has been a symbol of status in China for centuries, once served at imperial banquets and still poured at expensive weddings. The fin itself is nearly tasteless, prized only for a springy, gelatinous texture, while the flavor comes entirely from the broth. The problem is how the fins are taken. In the practice called finning, sharks are hauled up, their fins sliced off, and the still-living animal thrown back into the sea to sink and die. Tens of millions of sharks are killed for their fins every year, pushing some species toward collapse, since sharks grow slowly and breed late. Finning, the fin trade, or both are now banned in a long list of countries and many American states. A single bowl once meant honor, and now often means a fine. Absinthe. The emerald green spirit flavored with wormwood was the drink of 19th century Paris, poured for artists and poets and blamed for driving them mad. Rumors spread that a compound in wormwood called thujon caused hallucinations and violence, and after a Swiss laborer murdered his family in 1905 while heavily drunk, country after country banned the drink. The bans held for nearly 100 years across much of Europe and the United States. Only in the early 2000s did chemists confirm that vintage absinthe held mere traces of thujon, far too little to cause the fabled visions, and that the real culprit was simply its very high alcohol strength. The bans were lifted, and the Green Fairy returned to bars. Its reputation for madness, it turned out, was almost entirely a myth. Ortolan. Few dishes are as secretive or as illegal as the ortolan bunting, a tiny songbird once feasted on by the French elite. The birds were caught in nets, kept in the dark to make them gorge, then drowned alive in a glass of Armagnac brandy, before being roasted and eaten whole in a single mouthful. bones and all. Tradition held that diners draped a napkin over their heads while eating, said to trap the aroma, or to hide the act from the eyes of God. The songbirds' numbers collapsed from overhunting, and France banned catching them in 1999, though poaching quietly continued for years. It became legend as the final meal of French President François Mitterrand, who is said to have eaten 2 of them days before his death. It is gluttony and taboo served on a single small plate. Raw milk cheese. Some of the greatest cheeses in the world are effectively banned in the United States, not for being dangerous but for being too young. American law forbids the sale of any cheese made from unpasteurized milk unless it has been aged at least 60 days, on the grounds that aging kills harmful bacteria. That single rule shuts out many soft, traditional cheeses eaten happily across Europe, including authentic young Camembert de Normandie and the pungent runny A Poisse. To sell in America, producers must either pasteurize the milk, which purists say strips away the deepest flavors, or make a different, longer-aged version. The result is that a wheel of raw milk cheese perfectly legal on a farm in France becomes contraband the moment it arrives too young at an American port. To many cheese lovers, it is the taste of terroir left at the border. Sea turtle soup. For more than 2 centuries, green turtle soup was one of the most fashionable dishes in Britain and America, ladled out at grand banquets and presidential dinners alike. The green sea turtle was hunted so heavily for its meat and fat that it became a luxury, and demand was so high that a cheaper imitation, mock turtle soup made from a calf's head, was invented for those who could not afford the real thing. The hunting helped push sea turtles to the edge of extinction, and today all 7 species are protected. Catching, killing, or trading them is banned across most of the world, and the once celebrated soup has vanished from menus entirely. A dish that once signaled wealth and power is now a symbol of how easily an animal can be eaten almost out of existence. Haggis. Scotland's national dish is a savory pudding of sheep's heart, liver, and lungs, minced with oats, onion, suet, and spices, and traditionally cooked inside the animal's own stomach. It has been celebrated in poetry and served on Burns Night for centuries, yet the authentic version cannot legally be sold in the United States, and has been banned from import since 1971. The reason is a single ingredient, sheep lung, which American food safety rules forbid in any product, over fears that stomach fluids can enter the lungs during slaughter. Scottish producers make a special lungless recipe for the American market, but purists insist it is not the real thing. For a country that eats plenty of unusual cuts, the idea that one of the world's most famous traditional dishes counts as contraband strikes many Scots as absurd. Ackee. The national fruit of Jamaica is delicious, beloved, and genuinely dangerous if eaten at the wrong moment. Ackee grows in bright red pods that must open naturally on the tree before the pale yellow flesh inside is safe to eat. Picked too early, the unripe fruit is loaded with a toxin called hypoglycin, which can cause violent vomiting and a sharp, sometimes fatal drop in blood sugar, a condition once known as Jamaican vomiting sickness. Because of that risk, fresh ackee was banned from import into the United States for decades, allowed back only as carefully tested canned or frozen fruit. Prepared correctly from ripe pods, it is perfectly safe and forms half of Jamaica's national dish, ackee and saltfish. It is a fruit that rewards patience and punishes the impatient. Beluga caviar. The most prized caviar in the world comes from the beluga sturgeon of the Caspian and Black Seas, a giant fish that can live for a century and grow longer than a car. Its large, delicate gray eggs have sold for thousands of dollars per pound, a symbol of pure luxury. That value became its undoing. Decades of overfishing and poaching for caviar collapsed the wild sturgeon population, and in 2005, the United States, the biggest market, banned imports of beluga caviar to protect the species. Trade is now tightly restricted under international agreements. Legal caviar today comes mostly from farmed sturgeon, but true wild beluga remains largely off-limits. Once the ultimate mark of luxury, a spoonful of it now stands for a fish hunted to the brink. Foie Loko. When it launched in America, this cheap, brightly colored drink combined high-strength alcohol with heavy doses of caffeine in a single tall can, earning the nickname Blackout in a Can. A single tall can could hold as much alcohol as several beers alongside as much caffeine as a large coffee, all for just a few dollars. The caffeine masked how drunk the drinker was, letting people push far past their limit, and a wave of dangerous hospitalizations among college students followed. After several deaths were linked to caffeinated alcoholic drinks, American regulators declared the combination unsafe in 2010, forcing the original recipe off the market. Foie Loko survives today, but reformulated without the caffeine, a far tamer version of the drink that caused the panic. It stands as a rare case of a product banned not for a traditional ingredient, but for the reckless chemistry of mixing a stimulant and a depressant in one oversized can. Whale meat. For centuries, whales were hunted across the world for oil and meat, and in some countries, whale was a common food, especially in the lean years after the Second World War. In Japan, whale even appeared in school lunches for a time, and fatty cuts of it were sold as a cheap everyday meat. Industrial whaling grew so efficient that it drove several species close to extinction, and in 1986, the international community agreed to a moratorium that halted almost all commercial whaling. Today, the meat is banned or heavily restricted in most of the world, and importing it is illegal in many countries. Only a few nations, chiefly Japan, Norway, and Iceland, still hunt whales in defiance or under exemptions, and even their younger people are eating less of it every year. A food that once filled ration books is now, for most of the planet, both illegal and taboo. Horse meat. Eaten without a second thought in countries from France to Kazakhstan, horse meat is lean, slightly sweet, and perfectly legal across much of the world. In the United States and Britain, it is very nearly unthinkable. No law strictly forbids eating it, but in America, the slaughter of horses for human food has been effectively shut down for years, first through the removal of federal inspection funding, which quietly made it impossible to sell. The deeper barrier is cultural. In English-speaking countries, the horse is seen as a companion and a working partner, closer to a pet than to livestock, and the thought of eating one provokes real disgust. When beef products in Europe were found secretly cut with horse meat in 2013, the scandal was less about safety than betrayal. It is a reminder that what counts as food is often decided by feeling, not by law. Almost every food on this list was banned for one of a few reasons. It was dangerous, it was cruel, it pushed a species toward extinction, or it simply ran into a strange corner of the law. What one country calls a delicacy, another calls a crime, and the line between the two often has less to do with the food than with where the border happens to fall. Let us know in the comments which forbidden food we should put on the table next.